There is a clarity you have been chasing, not the comfortable kind that arrives with enough information or enough time, a different kind, the specific kind that feels like it is right there, almost within reach, forming at the edge of your awareness with enough solidity that you almost trusted it, and then dissolved again before you could name it. You have been circling something for days, maybe weeks, a decision that keeps presenting itself and then retreating. A direction that felt certain one morning and uncertain again by evening. A version of yourself that seems visible from some angles and completely invisible from others. What nobody is telling you is that what you have been feeling is not confusion. It is not indecision. It is not a weakness of character or a failure of nerve. It is the exact sensation produced in the body when fire meets fog. And tonight, in the sky above you, fire met fog with a precision that has not occurred at this degree in Aries for decades. Mars, the warrior, the hammer, the planet that governs how you act and what you are willing to fight for, met Neptune, the dream, the dissolution, the planet that takes every structure built on illusion and quietly removes its foundation until the structure falls on its own. They met tonight, in Aries, the first sign, the ignition point of the entire zodiac wheel, and the next 72 hours are the corridor between what this collision created and what you do with it. Here is what this collision actually is. Not metaphor, not symbolic language. The real mechanics of what happened in the sky tonight, and why your nervous system registered it before your mind could name it. Mars entered Aries recently, crossing the threshold from Pisces with the specific energy of a warrior who spent 40 days submerged in water and emerged carrying something distilled and essential. Mars in Aries is the warrior home, the fire in its own territory, the will that needs no translation. But Neptune has been in Aries since the early degrees of this year, sitting at the opening of the zodiac like a fog that has settled over the first breath of every new cycle. Not moving, not lifting, simply present, dissolving the edges of everything that passes through it, testing whether what approaches is solid enough to survive contact with what is not real. When Mars walked into Neptune tonight, it walked into that fog, and what happens to fire when it enters fog is the most important thing nobody is telling you about this transit, because fog does not announce itself. This is what the ancient Persian astrologers understood about Neptune's energy centuries before the planet had a modern name, when they called its principle the veil that makes everything look softer than it actually is. The fog does not warn you. It simply makes the painted wall look like an open door. It makes the fear dressed as courage feel indistinguishable from actual courage. It makes the decision that is still half-formed feel complete. It makes the vision that belongs to someone else feel like your own. And Mars, in its home sign, moving with the urgency and certainty of a warrior who has been waiting to act, is the planet most susceptible to this particular illusion. Because Mars in Aries does not hesitate. That is its power, and that is, tonight, its vulnerability. The thing that feels like clarity right now may be the most accurate signal you have received in months. Or it may be the fog wearing clarity's clothes, and knowing which one is which is the only question that matters in the next 72 hours. Let me show you how to tell the difference, because this is what the ancient skywatchers understood about Mars-Neptune conjunctions that modern readings consistently get wrong. They were not afraid of this alignment, they were precise about it. In the Persian tradition, a conjunction of the god of war with the planet of dissolution was called the meeting of the sword and the sea. And what they recorded across centuries of observation was this. When the sword enters the sea, one of two things happens. Either the sea reveals what the sword cannot cut, and the warrior learns to move differently, or the sword mistakes the ocean's surface for solid ground and sinks. The difference between those two outcomes is not strength, it is not intelligence, it is not even spiritual readiness. It is one thing only: whether the warrior knows they are in water. Whether you know right now that the ground beneath what feels like certainty is not yet solid. Not because the vision is wrong, not because the decision is wrong, but because Neptune's fog has not yet lifted, and what you are seeing through it is the approximate shape of the truth rather than the truth itself. Strange heaviness behind your ribs. Notice that. Not anxiety exactly. Something more specific. A heaviness in the chest that has no medical explanation and has been there since the day began. This is the Neptune signal arriving in the body before the mind can categorize it. Your nervous system has been registering the approach of this conjunction for days. The tightening in your jaw when a certain thought arrives. The 3 a.m. awakening with a decision fully formed in your mind that dissolves before breakfast. The face that keeps appearing. The situation that keeps returning. The choice that keeps presenting itself from different angles, as if the sky is trying to ensure you see it from every direction before you move. These are not symptoms of stress. These are what it vibrates in your bones when fire meets fog directly above your head, and they are telling you something specific, something that nobody else can tell you, because the message is encoded in the specific texture of what you have been feeling. The heaviness is not the weight of what you need to release. It is the weight of a decision that is waiting for the fog to clear before it can be trusted with the full force of Mars behind it. Now here is what nobody is telling you about the specific trap this alignment sets, because it is not the obvious trap. The obvious trap of a Mars-Neptune conjunction is acting on a delusion, charging forward into something that was never real. That is the trap most readings will warn you about. But there is a subtler trap, and it catches more people than the first one. It is this. The fog of Neptune in Aries is not always the fog of delusion. Sometimes it is the fog of genuine vision, arriving before the conditions for its realization are fully in place. And the trap is that this vision, arriving through Neptune's dissolving field, feels urgent. Mars makes it feel urgent. Aries makes it feel urgent. Everything about this alignment says, move now. And the thing that is trying to reach you through the fog is real. But moving before the fog clears means moving toward the approximate location of the truth rather than the truth itself. And approximate is not close enough when what you are reaching for has the potential to define the next phase of your life. Illusion versus truth. This is what Neptune has always asked you to distinguish. And in Aries, at the first degree of the first sign, this question is not abstract. It is architectural. The decision made now, in the fog, with the warrior's urgency behind it, will become the foundation of something. And foundations built in fog do not reveal their cracks until the structure above them is already standing. So how do you navigate 72 hours of fire meeting fog without either missing the genuine signal or acting on the approximate one? Here is what the sky is actually asking, not caution. Mars does not trade in caution, not recklessness. Neptune dissolves that before it can cause the worst damage. What the collision of Mars and Neptune in Aries is asking of you is discernment dressed as stillness, not the stillness of someone who has stopped moving, the stillness of someone who has stopped moving in the fog and is waiting with the full weight of Mars's readiness and Neptune's vision for the precise moment when the fog thins enough to see the exact shape of what they are walking toward. The ancient Babylonians who pressed their observations into clay tablets by lamplight had a practice during Mars-Neptune alignments that has been largely forgotten, not because it was secret, because it was inconvenient. They called it the one breath of the warrior. Before a decision that carries the energy of fire meeting fog, they required the warrior to speak the decision aloud, then breathe once, completely, from the bottom of the lungs to the top, and listen to what the body said during that single breath, not what the mind said. Not what the emotion said, what the body said. The body, which is mostly water, which responds to Neptune's frequency the way the ocean responds to the moon, always knows the difference between the fog wearing clarity's clothes and the actual clarity waiting behind the fog. This is not a coincidence that it is a continuation. The Saturn-Neptune conjunction that formed at 0 Aries is still active, still radiating the question it arrived to ask, which is what in your life is built on something real, and what has been sustained entirely by a story. And Mars, walking directly into the center of that question tonight, is the force that will pressure test every answer you have been composing in the months since that conjunction formed. The warrior does not accept theoretical answers. Mars requires the answer to be demonstrated through action. But Neptune ensures that the action taken through fog carries the fog into whatever it builds. Let me bring this into the specific areas where this alignment lands hardest, not in general. In the particular rooms of your life where Mars and Neptune are knocking simultaneously. If you have been feeling this collision most intensely in a relationship, the question Mars and Neptune are asking together is this: is the thing you are fighting for in this bond the actual bond, or the idea of the bond you built before you knew what the bond actually was? Neptune dissolves the mask. Mars demands you name what is beneath it. The next 72 hours are not the time to make the final decision. They are the time to look without the mask. just look. The decision can wait for the fog to thin. If you have been feeling it in your work or your sense of purpose, the collision is asking whether the direction you have been pursuing belongs to you or to an earlier version of yourself who made the choice before they understood what they were choosing. Not whether the direction is wrong, it's whether it is yours. The fog Neptune creates in Aries is most specifically the fog of inherited urgency, the need to move that belongs to someone else's voice installed in you long before you could distinguish it from your own. Mars amplifies whatever urgency is already present. The question is, whose urgency it is amplifying? And if you have been feeling it in the question of who you are becoming, which is always the deepest layer of any Aries transit, the Mars-Neptune collision is asking whether the identity you are moving toward is the one your soul recognizes or the one that makes sense to the people watching. The mask you have been wearing, the one others see and the one you wear for yourself, is under direct pressure from this alignment. Neptune has no patience for any mask. It dissolves them all with equal precision. Mars in Aries demands that what walks forward through the fog is real. Here is the practice for the next 72 hours. It is built from the mechanics of this specific conjunction and nothing else. It will not work for any other transit. It only works here, in the corridor between Mars entering Neptune's field and the fog beginning to thin. Take a physical piece of paper. Tonight, not tomorrow. Write one question at the top, only a question. Begin it with these words: what am I moving toward that I cannot yet fully see? Then do not answer it. Fold the paper once and place it somewhere you will encounter it in the morning. Let your sleeping mind, which speaks Neptune's language more fluently than your waking mind ever will, process the question through the night. When you wake, before you speak to anyone, before the noise of the day presses the dreaming mind back into its corner, sit with the paper still folded and ask yourself one thing: do I feel the weight of the decision or the lightness of the clarity? Weight is Neptune's signal that the fog is still present. Lightness is not always clarity, but it is the beginning of it. If you feel weight, wait. Not forever, not past the 72 hours, but wait for the weight to release before you move. If you feel lightness, write beneath the question the first step, one step. The kind that can only be taken from the approximate direction of a genuine vision, small enough that the fog does not matter for this one movement, large enough that it is real and not theoretical. The hammer has met the sea. What the sea was always hiding beneath its surface, the sea of Neptune that has been dissolving structures in Aries since the beginning of this year, is about to be revealed by the impact. Not gently, not with warning, with the surgical certainty of a warrior who has spent enough time in water to know what the water takes and what it keeps. What it keeps is real. What it took was never solid. And what the impact of Mars reveals in the next 72 hours is the precise inventory of which is which in your life right now. Most people will feel this alignment as a confusing intensification of everything that was already uncertain. They will call it overwhelm. They will call it a bad week. They will chalk it up to fatigue or circumstances and keep moving in the fog with the warrior's urgency and Neptune's direction and wonder why they arrived somewhere that looks like where they were trying to go but does not feel like it. They will not know it was the fog wearing clarity's clothes. You know now. And knowing changes everything about how you move through the next 72 hours. Not with caution, with precision. The warrior's precision applied to Neptune's territory, which is the only kind of precision that survives contact with what is not real and arrives at what is. Write what the body said in the comments, not the edited version, not the question you have been afraid to ask out loud for weeks. The one your body recognized the moment I named what this alignment is doing. One sentence, the true one. Someone will scroll to it later, standing in the same fog, looking for confirmation that what they are feeling in their own chest is not confusion, but contact. Your words become their signal, and the signal passed forward in the dark is always how the fog eventually lifts. Subscribe and turn on the bell. What Mars does after it clears Neptune's field will determine everything about the next phase. When the fog thins and the warrior moves with full vision, what gets built in the days that follow will build fast. You will want to be here when the picture becomes clear. The universe has spoken. What comes next is in your hands.